I want to beat the TNA World Champion. I want to beat Joe Hendry. I like nothing more than upsetting Joe Hendry fans. Look, I might not like the means by which Ethan Page came in and connived his way into a title shot, but I gotta respect it. As a TNA original, the TNA title on WrestleMania and seeing TNA be represented in front of 60,000 fans live, how could I feel nothing but pride? For every detractor we've had since 2002, 2003, we've had 10 times that many fans. I always was a fan of Chris Jericho, and I love the lion salt. You know, I throw a good leg drop, so like, what if I do a lion salt leg drop? I wrestled AJ Styles for the TNA World Title. I wrestled Kurt Angle for the TNA World Title. Maybe I just wasn't ready to be a champion. Now I am. Everything I've done in my 27 years doing this has led to this Sunday.
Rewind, recap, relive. Woo! That's what the world is watching.
My guest today is one of the most decorated stars in TNA history, from the X Division title reigns to tag title reigns. However, this weekend at Rebellion, looks to capture the one title that's eluded him his whole career. Please welcome the king of TNA, Frankie Kazarian.
Thank you. Thanks for saying the king of TNA and not the self-proclaimed king of TNA.
Well, I mean, I don't know why I do that, and I don't know why they do that on a
I
weekly
don't.
basis. Yeah, I mean, you are definitely the king of TNA, and thank you for coming back to the show. I can't wait to talk ahead of Rebellion. You do have this massive match coming up, this triple threat with Joe Hendry and all ego Ethan Page. But you were just able to step in the ring with Joe at Unbreakable, and I'm curious if you were able to spot any weaknesses ahead of the big match.
Well, as we've seen the last couple of weeks, Joe's dealing with a rotator cuff injury. Um, and, those, injuries happen in our business. It's unfortunate, but I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't take advantage of things like that. I know those type of injuries don't heal quickly. So it was beneficial for me to be in that match and to see just how well Joe is moving. He's dealing with it very well. I'll give him that. But that's what we do. You look for somebody's weakness and you capitalize on that. So um, look, Joe's got obviously he's got the crowd behind him. He's got a lot of support. But can he get it done in the ring uh, better than me? I don't think so, and we're going to find out this Sunday.
Yeah, no, we definitely will. And that atmosphere overall was so cool for Unbreakable. Like, so much happening that week for TNA to put on such a great show.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It was again that weekend in Vegas specifically. There's shows running every hour on the hour, multiple shows. So to get the turnout that we did, to draw the house that we did, proves to me that fans are very, very interested in what TNA is putting out there right now.
100%. Yes. And we're also seeing the effects of that TNA WWE partnership with this triple
Yep.
threat. Ethan Page coming over. Curious what your thoughts are on his plan to take the TNA title and go back to NXT with it.
Look, I might not like the means by which Ethan Page came in and kind of connived his way into a title shot, but I got to respect it because if the shoe were on the other foot, I would do the same thing. Uh, Ethan Page is a very, very talented, very bright guy. He brings a lot to the table, as does Joe Hendry. But Ethan Page has, another guy that bet on himself and is out there proving his worth right now. Uh, I might not like the fact that he was, kind of thrust into this match, but I've accepted it and I'm preparing for it. He brings a lot to the table, and I'm prepared for all of that. So, uh, he's earned his way in there. He's in there, but like I've said in the past, I want to beat the TNA World Champion. I want to beat Joe Hendry. I like nothing more than upsetting Joe Hendry fans. Uh, so I really want to do that. I would also like to upset some Ethan Page fans, but something about sad Joe Hendry fans that just warms my black heart. So that's kind of where I'm going. But look, at any advantage I could take in that match, I'm taking it.
Yeah. Well, then you could have a very good weekend if you do come out victorious. Well, we did just see Joe make a big appearance, surprise appearance on WrestleMania. And of course, you just said you love to upset his fans. You and Joe have had your issues, but being a
Yeah.
TNA original, did you ever think you'd see the day that the TNA World Championship appears on WrestleMania?
I mean, that you saying that sentence 5 years ago would be ludicrous. The things happening with this partnership in NXT and WWE, these are things that just were like not even discussed. They were, in fact, you were laughed out of the room if you would even suggest it, even like 5 years ago, let alone 10, 15 years ago. The companies were very closed off. The business was very, very different. And uh, the fans today, I hope they appreciate the time they're living in and getting to see this because this is Marvel and DC being, thrust together, which is awesome. Uh, it's just, I'm still really getting used to it, like as a TNA original, seeing the TNA title on WrestleMania and seeing TNA be represented in front of 60,000 fans live and however many millions, look, I'm one of the guys that helped build this company. So how could I feel nothing but pride?
Absolutely. And as the king of TNA too, I'm sure it felt special to see represented like that. Can you tell us what it means to be the
Certainly.
what does it mean to be the king of TNA?
Look, it means having tenure. It means knowing the company better than anybody. It means being worthy to rule over a kingdom. It means, look at I nobody knows the ins and outs of this company better than I do. Uh, Nobody currently in this company predates my being there. So just for that fact alone, and you if you look behind me and you've seen my accolades and the X Division titles and the tag team titles and very first Ultimate X, and I could go on and on and on. But uh, if I'm just going to sit here and put myself over, I can do that too. But I don't really need to. My action and my accolades speak for themselves. That is why I am in fact the king of TNA.
Just for a TNA trivia almost, is it you and Eric Young? Are those like the two
That's it.
wow.
If you're looking at TNA originals that are day one guys that are still currently on the roster doing this, it's him and I. That's it.
Very impressive. And you're still
Yeah.
feeling it coming up to the main event this Sunday.
Yep.
You said something last time you were on the show that I thought was really cool that since day one, people have counted out TNA and
Yeah.
time again, the company has proven people wrong and you guys have always proven people wrong. How do you view TNA or how do you see TNA being viewed today by the fans?
Look, you're always going to have those detractors, and there's, the people that were saying TNA is not going to last another week or another month in 2003. There's still people that are saying like, oh, it's just a matter of time, or they're what? Yeah, it's that's there's a phrase, the dog with no teeth barks the loudest. So I don't give any credence to that. I know what we're doing. I know, how we've been trending upwards in every measurable metric. I've seen the live crowds grow. I've seen the interest grow. I talk to management internally. I talk to people in marketing. Everybody, especially behind the scenes, is working incredibly hard to continue to push the brand and to continue to get more eyeballs on us. People behind the scenes that don't get the recognition. They're just as important as we are in the ring. Uh, and yeah, again, for every detractor we've had since 2002, 2003, we've had, 10 times that many fans that have been on the ride and are still on the ride and are excited to see where we go.
Yeah. No, you're so right. And being a part of TNA for as long as you have now, what was your first official match in TNA? Do you remember? Do you remember how that match was?
My match it was June of 2003. Uh, I was brought in because I had met Scott D'Amore and Jeff Jarrett and Jeremy Borash on an overseas tour, and they were interested in bringing me in, and they brought me in for what I thought was a tryout match. I teamed with Matt Striker and CM Punk, and we had a six-man tag that day, and I was brought back next week, and the next week, and the next week, and the next couple months, and I was like, I guess I'm hired here. And then I eventually got a contract. But it was just a matter of, they were in a phase where they were bringing guys in to see if they could do something with them. And luckily I got brought in and, I got a at that time NWA TNA World Title match within the first month of me being there against AJ Styles. They put me in a feud with Chris Sabin,
Mhm.
which, became one of my greatest opponents and one of my better friends in the business. And you really did well by me early on, and and then the stuff with the X Division, the Ultimate X match, and then the Michael Shane stuff, and um, it was cool because I was given an opportunity to sink or swim on my own, and I took the ball and I ran with it. And for better or worse, T and I have been, intertwined for the last 20 plus years.
And you brought up the Ultimate X match and all those, original opponents that you faced. It's really cool that you were part of the first Ultimate X
Yeah.
match. Do you remember hearing like what that match was going to be and the ideas they had for it?
I do. I remember hearing the concept of it, and it sounded very strange without seeing any like concept art or anything behind it. We were told about it. I know Glenn Gilberti, Disco Inferno, is the guy that's his brainchild. That's who came up with that idea. Um, then we were shown like some concept art, and originally it was supposed to be, I think, chains that formed the X, but that turned to cables, and we were told about it. We didn't know what to expect, and I've told this story a lot. We were brought in the night before. They didn't have the structure down. They didn't know what really how they were going to construct it. They had poles inside the ring posts at first. I went up there and tried to climb, and all the poles collapsed. They didn't know what to do. So, long story short, the day of the show, it wasn't until right before the doors opened that they got the actual lighting trusses up and had the structure complete. So we went into that match completely blind, having never climbed on it, done anything. We all went into that match completely blind. But at that time, you got three young guys, myself, Chris Sabin, and Michael Shane, that we were indestructible, and we just wanted to go out there and create something special. And I think we did. If you look at that match, outside of the ladder match, it's the most unique, um, original TNA concept match out there. And we're having another one at Rebellion that's going to be off the charts this Sunday. So to see that match, still continue to go, it's like sending one of my children out into the world and seeing it succeed. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I've never heard that story. That is so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it was I mean there's a lot more to it, but it was comical, it was terrifying. Yeah, we went into that, with a bunch of ideas, but not knowing anything, not knowing if that's going to support our weight, if we could do certain things. It was I'll tell the whole story someday, when I write that book. But yeah, it was just at the time it was just another crazy night, but looking back now it's wild to think about it.
You yourself have some incredible moments on that structure. You have the leg drop, you have the cutter
Yeah.
with Daniels. Uh,
Yeah.
do you have any others that impress you or that you love that happened in those matches that stand out?
It's funny, those, in those early days, it was all just like, especially with those Ultimate X matches, it was almost like, can you top this?
Yeah.
It was like stuff with like, like just like one of the early ones, AJ takes this inside out bump that's just incredible, and like, uh, and then you got the famous hanging upside down diamond cutter that I did on Chris Daniels, and then Chris Daniels tops that and jumps from the truss to the center of the X. So then I have to top that like an idiot and jump off the top of the structure and leg drop Davari, and it almost got comical. But those matches are, again, like that cutter that I hit on Daniels, watching that clip back and seeing the crowd react, and hearing the late great Don West and Mike Tenay on the call. That's one of those iconic moments in TNA. So it's like that one and the leg drop. I mean, I'll never escape those, and nor do I want to. I mean, I would I think back to where I was mentally at that time, and I'm just, I'm kind of the same guy. I'm that same kid just trying to prove himself and bust his ass and go out there and give the fans every ounce of me.
It's funny you say that because I was wondering what that Frankie Kazarian would have thought seeing the one of today and everything you've accomplished since. You think it's basically the same type of mindset?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, there was a lot more reckless abandon back then. I think I'm a lot smarter now. Again, back then I was indestructible. I just, it didn't, I would throw caution to the wind. I think I've grown a little bit smarter. So, not saying I wouldn't take risks, but they'd be a lot more calculated. Um, because, again, you know, it takes a certain kind of idiot to jump off the top of a structure like that, not knowing how he's going to land. And I was that idiot. But again, like I don't regret any of that. I wouldn't change a thing. I would just take a lot more calculated risks these days.
Well, no, definitely created a memory forever with a lot of those things.
Yeah.
And this is a bit of TNA history too. I don't believe you're in this, but the TNA wrestling video game wasn't one of my
Yeah.
personal favorite video games of all time. I don't know if you have any memories of when they said TNA was going to get a video game, or memories of that whole, how it went down. But I'd love to hear if you do.
I do remember them getting a video game, and I initially was not uh, in it. I know Chris Daniels and AJ and Joe were involved heavily at the time, and they were doing stuff for voiceover and for the motion capture and stuff. Um, I do have a certain tie to that video game with a character who will remain nameless. But yeah, I mean that was just another at the time. It was another evolution in where TNA was going. We were on pay-per-view, then we got Fox Sports, then we got Spike TV. Now we got a video game, and it was like one of those things, kind of like the same today. We were trending upward. So it was another like, oh, cool. It was another, something else to legitimize what we were doing.
Absolutely. I know it's a lot of, wrestling gamers' favorite game because it was just so unique. You had the Ultimate X match in it. It was different than a lot of the games
Yeah.
at that time. I'd love to seeing as TNA is trending right now, who knows, maybe a video game down the line.
That would be cool. I mean, I get tagged a lot. People, obviously the 2K game is very popular. My son plays it. He loves it. And I get tagged a lot. People that create
Yeah.
create TNA wrestlers, and they get the likenesses so incredibly spot on. It's frightening. Or and a lot of fans are tagging like, "Hey, when are you going to be downloadable content for the?" And I'm like, "Man, you're asking the wrong person. I don't know. I would love for TNA to have its own unique video game, maybe with that same engine, since that was very popular with wrestling fans. That would be cool, but that's above my pay grade. But hopefully, with the continuation of what we're doing and becoming more successful and getting more eyes on the product, that's something that we could aspire to have.
Yeah. Well, you have a lot of tools you could use heading into this Sunday to walk out victorious and as TNA champion. But I'm curious for you, you've hit this from so many heights and angles. How did the leg drop become Frankie Kazarian's synonymous move?
I'll tell you this: the I always liked the leg drop. I always was good at. I could get good height on a leg drop, do different variations, a regular leg drop, a vault over leg drop, the springboard leg drop, which I is one of my high flying moves, one of the very few. Uh, Honestly, that became a thing because I always was a fan of Chris Jericho. I still am, and I love the lion salt. But my moonsault was never like I could never hit a picture perfect one. So I was always of the mindset if you can't do something perfectly, don't do it.
Mhm.
But I was like, I throw a good leg drop. So like, what if I do a lion salt leg drop, and I just turn in midair? And I don't know if it had been done. I don't want to lay claim to inventing it, but I'm going to say I invented it. I'd never seen anyone do it. So that became because uh, I couldn't do something, but I could do something else. So I was like, well, I'm just going to do like a giant springboard turnaround leg drop. And it's become one of my staples and one of the things I'm kind of known for. And I just don't know, like, everyone has asked me, like, is your tailbone destroyed? It is. I feel great. I've never felt, any ill effects of that. And I've thrown thousands of those leg drops. So it's just one of my, also another, I was always a big fan of Rob Van Dam.
Okay.
And he did some really cool variations of leg drops. So, I took, kind of what he was doing because he was so super innovative. So I would just, I would, I would find different ways to get in and out of leg drops and stuff. And I just like the move. I think it looks cool. Everybody knows what it is. Also, I can't not mention this guy. I'm a huge Bobby Eaton fan.
Okay.
One of the prettiest leg drops of all time from the top. So like, all those things kind of combined is what you know, kind of, really forced me to like come up with my own variations of the leg drop.
I don't know. Yeah, again, I don't know if you were the one to invent that specifically, but you were the first person I saw do it, and I loved it.
Okay.
Very
That's good enough for me. I'm going to go ahead and lay claim to it right now. Yeah.
right now. Well, Frankie, thank you so much for your time. Before I wind it down, I just want to bring up again Rebellion this Sunday. Why is right now, after all the history we just talked about in your career in TNA, why is right now the time that you will win that TNA championship?
It's all, I mean, if you want to get, philosophical about it, I think it's all about the stars aligning. Um, I wrestled, AJ Styles for the TNA World Title. I wrestled Kurt Angle for the TNA World Title. Maybe I just wasn't ready to be a champion. Physically, mentally, emotionally. Now I am. Since I came back to TNA, I have said that my goal, my focus is the TNA World Title. So, and this Sunday is, uh, you know, in Los Angeles. It's like, again, everything I've done uh, in my 27 years doing this has led to this Sunday at Rebellion, you know, 5 minutes away from where I grew up watching wrestling to finally become TNA World Champion.
Rewind, recap, relive. Woo! That's what the world is watching.